Australia is a nation of vast horizons, but in its capital cities, a different kind of land grab is underway. 4 cities are currently locked in a multi-billion-dollar engineering arms race to claim the title of Australia's tallest building. In one corner, the traditional heavyweight, Sydney. In the other, the bold challenger, Melbourne. Then there's Brisbane, the rising star of the north, and the Gold Coast, the holiday strip that currently holds the undisputed crown. This is a story of structural steel, zoning battles, and the engineering grit required to build a skyscraper in a country with some of the strictest aviation laws on Earth. Will Melbourne finally reclaim the throne? Can the Gold Coast defend its title? Or will the invisible ceiling of its skies bring these giants to a standstill? The rivalry between Sydney and Melbourne didn't start with skyscrapers, but it certainly found a home there. In the 1960s, Sydney's Australia Square Tower changed the skyline forever. At 170 metres, it was a marvel of mid-century concrete engineering. By the 1970s, Sydney was the undisputed king, home to the tallest buildings in the Southern Hemisphere. But in 1986, the rivalry turned bitter. Melbourne fired back with the Rialto Towers. At 251 metres, it didn't just beat Sydney, it dominated the conversation. Melbourne held that crown for nearly 2 decades, solidified by 120 Collins Street, a building many viewers will remember as the peak of Australian corporate prestige for 14 years. If you wanted to see the top of Australia back then, you had to go to Victoria. Then, in 2005, a wild card entered the ring. The Gold Coast, a city once better known for surfboards than steel, unveiled the Q1. Standing at 322 metres, it was Australia's first Supertall. For 20 years, the Q1 has stood undefeated. Sydney and Melbourne have both tried to topple it, and both have failed. Until now. For the men who worked in construction or engineering during the housing booms of the 80s and 90s, the logic of the skyscraper is clear. It is a masterpiece of return on investment. In a CBD, where land is scarce and costs tens of thousands of dollars per square metre, building up is the only way to make the numbers work. Consider a standard 1,000 square metre plot. Build a single story, and you have 1,000 metres of space. Stack 100 stories, and you've created a vertical city of 100,000 square metres on the exact same patch of dirt. These aren't just vanity projects, they are essential infrastructure. With the Australian government targeting 1.2 million new homes by 2029, high-density residential towers like the Q1, which houses over 500 families, are a critical part of the housing solution. But as any builder knows, the higher you go, the more the laws of physics and the laws of the land begin to fight you. Building a giant in Australia isn't as easy as it is in Dubai or Shanghai. Australia has some of the most restrictive aviation laws in the developed world. Every major Australian city sits under a prescribed airspace. These are monitored by CASA, the Civil Aviation Safety Authority. They use 2 main metrics, the OLS, or Obstacle Limitation Surface, and the more critical PANS OPS surfaces. PANS OPS are invisible corridors in the sky that protect planes flying on instruments during bad weather. If a building pokes into that corridor, it's not just a zoning issue, it's a national security and safety violation. This is why Brisbane is effectively disqualified from the race. Their limit is a hard 274 metres. To go even a metre higher, you'd have to relocate Brisbane Airport. Then there's the law of the shadow. In Sydney and Melbourne, a tower cannot cast a shadow over iconic public spaces like Hyde Park or the Royal Botanic Gardens during peak hours. Sunlight is considered a protected right. We saw a brilliant yet expensive workaround at One Central Park in Sydney using heliostats, motorized mirrors that track the sun and reflect light into the building's own shadow. While impressive, it adds hundreds of millions to the budget, often making Supertalls financially unviable. As we head into 2026, the race has narrowed to 2 primary contenders. In Melbourne, the project is Southbank, also known as the Green Spine. This is a $2.7 billion twin-tower proposal featuring a twisting facade covered in what will be the world's tallest vertical garden. The taller tower is slated for 365 metres. However, the project has run into funding headwinds. As of mid-2025, reports indicated the developer was scouting for new partners to manage soaring construction costs. If Melbourne can clear the financial hurdles, it will reclaim the throne. But the Gold Coast has a counter-move. Approved in late 2025, One Park Lane is a project that defies belief. Located in Southport, it consists of a 101-story residential tower reaching a staggering 393 meters. This would not only dwarf the Q1, but it would also be one of the tallest residential structures on the planet. Because the Gold Coast lacks the strict aviation ceilings of Brisbane or Sydney, it is the only city in Australia where a 400-meter tower is actually legal. But paper is patient, and the economy is not. Any man who followed the Grollo Tower saga in Melbourne in the 1990s knows that a proposal is not a building. The Grollo Tower was meant to be 500 meters tall, a monolith that would have been the tallest in the world at the time. It never happened. The project collapsed under its own weight and the financial pressures of the era. Today, South Bank and One Park Lane face a similar reality. With interest rates high and possibly still rises to come, and the cost of specialized structural steel at record levels, the question isn't just who can design the tallest tower, but who can afford to finish it. Construction on One Park Lane is anticipated for 2026, but in this industry, the first shovel in the ground is just the beginning of a 5-year battle against gravity and gravity's favorite partner, inflation. The race for Australia's tallest skyscraper is no longer just about bragging rights, it's a test of our engineering limits and our economic resilience. Whether the winner is the Green Spine in Melbourne or the Park Lane giant on the Gold Coast, the skyline of this country is about to change forever. Which city do you believe deserves the crown? Should Australia be building higher to save its suburbs from sprawl? Or has it reached the limit of what makes sense for its cities? Leave a comment below. The debate over Australia's skyline is one that every generation has a stake in. If you appreciated this deep dive into the engineering of our capital cities, like this video and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notifications so you never miss a new video. We'll be here to track every floor as these giants rise. See you in the next one.